Hello everyone, welcome to Ready Set RC. I'm here to discuss today the ECX, the 118th ECX Ruckus. I know a lot of you are looking at this right now and you're saying, hey, that's not a Ruckus, that's a Roost. But it's actually not the Roost because a lot of this was changed. The framing and the body post was changed to make it resemble the Roost. Once the Roost released, I really like the body. I like the look of it, and just basically decided to change it up. And with the ECX 118th chassis, they're all pretty much the same. You can take the Roost, you can take the Torment, you can take the Ruckus, and basically they're all the same vehicle. It's just a matter of making some slight modifications, and next thing you know, you got yourself a Torment, or you got yourself a Roost, or you got yourself a Ruckus. I'm going to go ahead now, take off this body so you can actually see what it looks like with the Ruckus body on there, and I'll just go over some of the changes that I've done to this one to make it customized into my own RC. So as I was saying, I had made some modifications to this truck to make it more of my own. There were some limitations that I saw that I thought that this could be improved. Just to give you a little bit of history on this, I got this truck because I was trying to get my son into RCing. I originally got him a Latrax teat, and then I figured, most of my RCs, and you'll see as my channel progresses, are 1/10 and bigger. I never really had a 1/18th vehicle that I could get out there and really play around with him with his Latrax. So I picked this up, which is, as I said, it was an ECX 1/18th Ruckus. Played around with them for a little bit, but then I'll be honest with you, the Latrax is a lot faster. And I just wanted something that could keep up with him and also still have fun myself with it. So I had made some modifications. As I take it off, you'll see I didn't change out the motor. The motor is still the same. But what I noticed was with the nickel metal hydride battery, you basically have a vehicle that's limited in speed and how long it can actually go. So these are some of the modifications that I made. It was the King tires that are on the Losi 1/18th Mini 8. Also, I changed out, and I'll bring this up, hopefully the camera will focus on this a little bit better. You'll see that I also changed out here is a Hobby Wing 30 amp ESC. The plugs, I changed that over to Dean's. Before, I think it was a Tamiya's type plug that was there. I left the servo because it was a decent servo for the speed of this vehicle, so I left that in. But what I really wanted was to go over to a Lipo battery, and that's what you see here is now a Lipo battery with Dean's connectors. The motor was sufficient for what I'm using it for, but eventually I'll probably change that over as my son's getting a little bit more progressed in his driving. Also, the ESC that comes with this, it's a radio and ESC all in one. So you got a speed controller with also the radio. So what I did was is I swapped it out, and I have, like, mainly for most of my hobby, my Horizon vehicles, what I have is using a Spectrum receiver and a Spectrum transmitter. So did the same thing here, as you can see, and hopefully the camera can focus in on that. You'll see the Spectrum radio right here that I use with my Horizon vehicles. So just to show you how easy it was to change it over, and to the hexes, because unfortunately with these that you get with your ECX, the hexes are already in there, and they're a beast to get out if they can at all get out. So I just ended up buying new hexes for them. I think they may have either fused with them or they come this way, but I didn't want to deal with it, so I just bought new hexes. But you'll see, and I'm going to sit here and transform it real quick for you, that all you have is a Ruckus all over again with just some simple modifications. And there's the Ruckus. Nothing different. This all started, as I said, started off from me having the nickel metal hydride to then the tires also, as you can see here, just disintegrating on me with the brush motor. And then eventually going over and getting these Pro lines. Hopefully the focus on. You see the Pro lines. But the problem with the Pro lines, and I'll say this, because a lot of guys I see out there on YouTube, they go over to the Pro lines. They're huge, and they put such a strain on the motor. And if you can see how I'm going to compare these to what comes on the ECX Ruckus, it's a lot of strain on the motor. Your battery is definitely not going to be able to handle it. I just got to the point where I started comparing other vehicles that I had that were out there, and I just noticed that the Kings were perfect. I mean, if you compare that to these here, the Pro lines. Now let me get that back in, just so you can see them. And you compare them, see how much bigger they are. And these are the King rears, just so you get an idea of like what I'm talking about. Because the Kings have front and rears with their on them. And if you compare these to the ECX Ruckus tires, now remember now, even though one's low C and the other one's ECX, they're both Horizon. And if you can see that they're very close. I mean, the width is definitely not there, but for the look that I'm going for, I'm not too concerned about the width. What I wanted is a tire that was basically the same size, and as you can see here, it's almost spot on. So in doing that and changing my tires over to the Kings, as I was saying before, I definitely noticed an improvement in the battery life as moving off from the Pro Line tires, which was great. So what I'm going to do now is just compare. Since then, I've gotten some other scale vehicles or other vehicles I can compare to them. Technically, how they say these vehicles are, they're not 1/18th, similar to what they say about the Ruckus. But once you see the size comparisons, you're going to see what the difference is, why they say a 1/18th versus a 1/14th versus a 1/16th. And just get an idea of what the size differences are once I compare them up with them. So I was saying, I wanted to show you some comparisons of other vehicles that are out there. Now, this is the 1/14 Mini 8. I had put my own body on there because I made some modifications to this vehicle. In other videos that I do have on the channel, you'll see a more in-depth review of this vehicle. But as of right now, this is mainly about the ECX Ruckus that I wanted to give you a comparisons between them. So here you have the ECX Ruckus and the 1/14 Mini 8. And just to get a size comparison, just as I was saying to you guys, this is a 1/18 vehicle. And here you have the 1/14 Mini 8. Now those 1/14 and 1/18 is mainly for its comparisons to its own vehicle. It's not a true idea of what the scale of the vehicle is, because if you look at the two vehicles, and I'll try to match this up as best as possible, they're almost identical in size. When you take them and you put them right on top of each other, other than my bumper guard here, they're practically the same size. I mean, you really are not seeing much of a difference between these two vehicles here. And that's what really got me to the point of going there and comparing the ECX Ruckus and the Low C Mini 8, and then trying out the tires and seeing what they were. I'll just say that it's definitely confusing if you're looking at vehicles and you're looking at things and you're seeing 1/18th and 1/14th and thinking that there's going to be a dramatic difference in size. But it all depends on the vehicle and what they're comparing that 1/14th and 1/18th to determine the size comparisons. But yeah, these almost spot on with the vehicle sizes and the tire sizes, and it was just a great vehicle to kind of take parts from, mainly, as I say, the tires right now, to do it. Maybe later on in the future I start to see what other parts I can use to upgrade or make changes to the ECX Ruckus. But now I want to also show you what this looks like up against the Teton, and then I have one last vehicle that I want to compare it to so that you guys see a true comparisons across some other platforms. So here you have the Latrax Teton that I was speaking about before. This is my son's, and you see the Teton compared to the ECX Ruckus, and as you can see, the Teton is definitely a smaller vehicle. I will say with Trax's part support, it's probably a lot easier to modify this, and the aftermarket part support for it versus the Horizon products. What you will notice is that there's a ton of hop-ups for this, but as I said, my son's 7. There's not really much that I want to hop up, rather than moving him off the 1/18th scale and moving him on to the 1/10th scale vehicles. So I'm not really concerned in hopping this up and making this so bulletproof that it gets to the point where it's not going to break. I want him to break it. I want him to learn the hobby of replacing parts and knowing how to work on your RC. Otherwise, I get a toy grade RC for him. Part of the hobby is definitely going ahead, getting yourself a hobby grade RC, breaking it, and knowing how to put it together. I feel it's a tremendous skill out there to learn how to work on things, not just RCs, but everything. Learn to work on things and learn how to repair things out there. It's definitely a skill that you have to learn to master, is how to put things together. So as going back onto the fact of just comparing the Teton along with the ECX Ruckus, as you see, there is a tremendous size difference. At one point, I even got to the point where when my tires blew out, I was just going to grab my son's and just roll with them on the Ruckus, and I just said, hey, those tires are way too small. I'm going to be putting too much stress on that motor to get those moving and doing the things that I need them to do. But as you can see, as I was saying, there is a size difference. I'll put these two on top of each other so you can get an idea. Teton is definitely a smaller vehicle. I haven't really gone through the Latrax line to see what the differences are between the trucks and the cars and the other vehicles that they offer, but I wouldn't be surprised, based on their parent company Traxxas, that this chassis can also do the same things that I'm doing with the ECX line. And that meaning that you can sit there and modify this and change this to something else outside of just having it as a monster truck. So now I have one more vehicle that I want to show you and compare this against, just so you can get an idea of the scale and the size of the ECX Ruckus. Alright guys, so lastly, this is my 1/16 scale Mini E-Revo, Murph to some people as they know it. I've modified this car heavily because I wanted this to be a street roadster. This is probably one of my first mini vehicles out there. If I can recall properly, this is probably one of the first, and I really wanted it to be an on-road car. Really wanted to just be a speed demon. I'll even take the shell off so you guys can see what's in here. It's fairly quick. I had to do a lot of modifications to make this, to actually keep this on the road. But yeah, it's a beautiful car. Just so you guys get an idea of what's actually in this thing. And I'll bring this closer to the camera because this is really an ECX video, but I want to give you guys an idea of what I'm working with on this vehicle. But going back to the ECX Ruckus, just to get an idea and see what the 1/16th and 1/18th and this is probably more of a true identification between the two and how 1/16th is just slightly bigger. So you have here, as I said, my Murph, my Mini E Revo 1/16th scale, and just comparing that to the ECX Ruckus to get an idea of what the size comparisons are. Truly a bigger car, bigger truck, as you can see. And it's not just by the body that's on there, but it is truly a bigger vehicle. So much, this chassis is just so much more you can do with it in regards to, you know, putting a 1/10 scale motor in there and really hopping it up. This, I would say, is definitely a starter, a beginner RC, something where you can go out there, play with your kids, or if your kids have their friends over, you can have them, you know, knocking this around, playing around with this. I would not do that with this vehicle. You know, especially the way I've modded it, it's just way too much power. And also, I would say it's, you know, just in general, as a vehicle to have a younger child or a person just getting into the hobby playing with this, definitely not something that you want them doing. There's a lot of money that's put into this vehicle. But, you know, just wanted to give you guys a comparisons between the vehicles, get an idea of what I had to offer here on the Ready Set RC, and definitely come back and see the other videos that I have in to come, so you guys get an idea of what this channel is going to be about and what we got to offer to the rest of the YouTube nation. Once again, thanks again for coming out. Thanks for coming and watching my video. Ready Set RC, signing off. Bye, guys.